Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Santosh Yadav, presenting the topic, GitHub Actions Best Practices.
Hey everyone, good morning and thanks for coming at 10 o'clock talk. I know it's too early. Nice to be here. I was here last year as well. How many of you were here last year? Can you raise your hand? Oh, not not much. Okay. So last year I gave a talk about GitHub Actions. So it was like getting started with GitHub Action. And when the organizers reached out to me again to give a talk, I was like, okay, I think I should continue with the same talk where I left. So GitHub Actions getting started, now it's best practices. And I try to keep it short because there are so many things to learn about GitHub Actions, best practices when it comes to best practices basically. So of course there are more to learn. I'll throw some links at the end, some references so you can learn more. And let's go ahead and get started with the talk, GitHub Actions best practices. And at the end, I have also a demo for GitHub Copilot Workspaces. How many of you have access to GitHub Copilot Workspaces and you tried it? Okay, so some of you have access but never tried it. So there'll be a cool demo like writing a GitHub Actions. So a little bit about myself. I'm a senior software engineer at Celonis. That's where I get my money from. And I'm a GDE for Angular and an ex-champion. I'm also a GitHub star. So I get to interact a lot with GitHub team and of course Angular team as well. I'm also co-founder of a community called This Is Learning. We just did our first virtual conference last week. Wow, just a week ago. And we are planning for next edition 2025. That will be virtual as well. But just in case you are interested to appear on a podcast, we also do a podcast called This is Tech Talks. Just reach out to me on X or LinkedIn. I'm there at Santosh Yadav Dev. And I'm also on GitHub. Probably that's why they made me a GitHub star. So let's talk about what is GitHub Actions first, right? Before jumping into the best practices. So we know like it's a build tool to automate your workflows. That's what we all of us know, right? That's what we do. How many of you actually use GitHub Actions at work? Oh my god, I'm scared now. Okay, so GitHub Actions, of course, we can run workflows for any GitHub event, right? So you can have your merge, pull, push, even if your issues are created, your pull requests are created. So you can actually handle all those events and run some jobs, right? That's what we do. That's why we are being paid. And we can use any workflow, run our workflow on any machine. Now, thanks to GitHub, that now macOS is open source as well. So in case you are running your workflows and you have an open source project, you can now use macOS as well. Earlier it was mostly Linux, but you know there are some limitations which you can do with Linux, so Mac comes handy. And of course there is Windows for some reason. Okay, so it also supports matrix, and I think the demo I'm going to show you will see like how we can create matrix as well, and you can also write your custom actions. That's how people steal data, right? Just kidding, don't do that. So best practices is a tricky topic, right? I mean, it's actually starts from the day you create your organization on GitHub. So it's not like something which you have to do after your data is stolen. You have to follow it from the day one. But few things to remember about best practices. As I said, best practices starts from day one, but be proactive because best practices can change. The same thing which was best practice 2 years ago might not be the best practice 2 years after, right? So we all know that. So be proactive whenever you are following best practices, and how of course we are going to talk about it. So let's see the first thing. Everything starts from the access, right? So if you're not keeping an watch on your GitHub Actions, what can happen? Of course, probably your data is stolen and then your company shuts down, right? So I think the same thing happened with one of the password management companies few years ago, right? I don't want to take names. I mean, I don't remember it basically, but I don't want to take names. So whenever you start creating your GitHub organization or you start setting up your GitHub organization, this is one thing people do. They start adding individuals, right? Because that's something which is easy to do. But remember, the things which are easy to do is not the best choice, right? I mean, it may fire back. And this is Why? You should, it's okay if it takes time, but try to give access to teams, set up your teams properly. So you don't have to worry about like who is leaving your teams, and you have to remove all those users manually, otherwise they go to another company and steal your code and become millionaire, right? So how you can do that? Of course, github.com. You can just go to collaborators and teams, and then you can start adding. You can see two tabs, right? So basically there is, I don't know how this things work. Okay, so but you can see there is something called add people and add teams. Try to have fewer admins. I mean, if you're adding people, of course, probably you may need to, because there will be some admins. You can add actually few admins, and rest of them goes as teams. And now you can actually do multiple things here. Uh, Many of the people who use Azure, they use Azure AD, right? So you can create your teams on Azure AD and then sync up with the GitHub Actions. That's a good way. That's what we do at Celonis. We don't have teams like, we don't create teams directly. We create it in Azure AD first, and then we create or add those teams here. So it's easy to manage. So when someone leaves the organization, they are removed from the Azure AD and they don't have access anymore. And we don't have to sync up all these things manually. GitHub also launched branch protection rules last year. How many of you are using it? Anyone? Yeah, very few, right? Of course, I know Michael. So you should do that. There are things like, of course, I can show you how it looks like, just in case you never used it. So you can actually set up. I don't know why this is looking blurred. It's blurry, right? Okay, so it's okay. So, but you can see there are so many things which you can set up as your branch protection rules. There are a few important things. For example, required signed commits. This is very important because there have been instances of people actually faking or like imitating someone else who is not actually the commit author, but making sure the required commits are on for all the users will be a great addition in case you're planning to create a branch protection rules. Set it for your master so no one can delete it. So there are so many checks here. For example, this check, right? Rules apply to everyone, including an administrator. So allow force push and allow deletions. Be safe. Don't do that. And you can also set like who can push to the branches. This is very handy in case you're putting branch protection rule on your master so no one can push, but you want to allow admins, right? That's what we do. Some admins have access, so you can actually probably add teams here as well. In case you have an admin team, you can actually just add them and they can push the code to the masters or a release branch basically. And this is how it looks like, branch protection rules. I mean, go ahead and start using it. This is very good way to secure your GitHub Actions as well. We know this, like use trusted actions, but how? Like, because there are so many actions, which is very handy for us, right? For example, if you want to solve some use cases, for example, creating your release notes, right? Of course, github.com also has an way you can just create it manually, but who does the manual thing, right? We will just waste 10 hours automating the task. We can do it in 1 minute. That's why we are developers. So you always see this permission. So in case you go to GitHub, and of course all these are actually part of the settings, so you will find something called actions permission, and you can see allow all actions and reusable workflows are actually enabled by default. And you can change the settings, so you can see there are multiple options which are available. So be safe, like which actions you want to allow and which you don't. And one more thing, when it comes to GitHub Actions, use specific SHA. I mean, just to ask, how many of you are actually using SHAs on GitHub Actions? No one, right? Even not me. But yeah, you should do that. I mean, there have been instances where, I mean, of course, if this action is provided by GitHub, we know that that's secure. But if this is a third-party action, there are multiple ways people can hack your data, right? I mean, you know what happened with Ziatan, right? He's very famous now. So everyone knows his name, but never saw him. Wow, what a person. So try to use SHA-1, so no one, if there is any vulnerability, you can always like there is no threat to your organization. Basically, you can just roll back to the previous version just in case something comes up. And this is how you can do it. So if you see, I have a action setup node, where I've just written SHA-1. Basically, of course, I don't want you to copy paste the SHA-1. So whenever you are passing any actions, just use the SHA-1. Even with the GitHub Actions, I think that's safe to use. Of course, when GitHub Actions or the actions by GitHub, when they release a new version, basically they're super fast. Basically, you might have used the recent one for uploading and downloading artifacts. Like the version 4 is really fast. In case you are still on v3, I would recommend going to v4 for artifacts. It's just much faster than v3. One thing, audit third-party actions. We generally don't do that, right? I mean, this is part of the best practices where I said you have to always be proactive. So in case you are not using any third-party actions, remove them, because this is where we as a developer are a little bit not very much active, right? I mean, why should we touch something which works? That's what we all do. But regularly audit your third-party actions, see if there are some actions which are not being used, just part of the job but never being used, and try to remove them, try to upgrade them in case there are some known vulnerabilities on your the actions which you're using, or if there are any better options. For example, I was trying to use action to create a GitHub to raise a PR, and then I found a third-party action, but thanks to the author who clearly wrote, go ahead and go use GitHub CLI. So of course I was saved. But there are so many actions which are not doing that, right? Probably they are not archiving their repositories. So see your options if you can replace them by using something which already exists. And GitHub CLI has so many commands which can replace most of your use cases, or even the GitHub API, right? Directly calling GitHub API will solve most of your issues. But why should we do that? I mean, it's again matter of your choice, whether you want to save time or whether you want to rely on someone who wrote any action which exists. Be careful with outside collaborators. We all learned the lesson. Again, thanks to Jiatan. I don't know who this guy is, but Kim's coming in my talk. So we all of you might have this enabled. It's called require approval for first-time collaborators, even for your open source projects. I would recommend switching it off and going to require approval for all outside collaborators. So in case you have any outside collaborator, they always have to get approval before they run your action. If you trust someone, just go ahead and add them as a team member, right? Rather than actually keeping them as outside collaborator. So you don't have to approve every time. But we all learned our lessons, right? I mean, we have probably burned our fingers more often than we should, because you see, with all this superpowers comes great responsibility, right? Spider-Man. And that's what is happening. You got GitHub Actions. Now you can write your GitHub Actions easily. You can have more superpowers, but again, there is a drawback. There are more people who wants to exploit those and steal your data. There are more ways now. This is very interesting because one of the most powerful thing in GitHub universe is GitHub token. We all know that, right? And if someone steals your GitHub token, okay, then God saves you. Otherwise, it's okay. So follow list privilege. This is something which we also don't do. I mean, who actually follows this list privilege principle here? Anyone? Wow, thank you. So you should do that, and I will give you some hints like how you can actually do this, or how you can actually get the idea like what privilege you should have. So GitHub token is, as I said, most powerful token in the entire GitHub universe, and it has privilege as similar as admin. So it can do anything. It can delete your repository, it can create a new repository, create new issues, merge PRs, everything. So by default, you have read and write permission, but switch it on to read permission if possible. So you can have read repository for contents and package permission by default. And then once you need more permission, you can actually do this. So on your jobs, you can actually define this. This is something which you can do on your job spaces as well as global. So you don't have to go ahead and just enable all the permission for your GitHub action. Just keep it at read, and then whenever you read, you need more permissions, you can just ask GitHub Actions to give you more permission with GitHub Actions or GitHub token, sorry. So this is how you can do it at job level, at workflow level. So you can, after your event, you can just say permissions, and then you can say, hey, give me read all access on this workflow, so I can read everything which I want to, basically reading issues, reading permission, reading PRs, everything. In case you want to do it at job level, this is something you can need. For example, let's say if you are publishing your packages, right, on npm, so you may need packages write and pull request, right, basically, because you will also push the commits, right, some version. So do this, follow this principle, but again, this is hard to identify, right, what level of permission I should have. So I'll come to that point, like how you can do that. But again, when it comes to your secrets, have environment level secrets. So there are less chances that your secrets leak. And here, like I can show you where you can have. Okay. So all settings exist here. So you can go to your settings tab, and okay, why is it so slow? Okay, meanwhile it's opening. I can go back to my slide. Something happened with the internet. It says trying to connect. That's wrong. Okay, I'll just disconnect and connect again. Works 90% of the time. Okay, it worked again. So yeah, so you can go to your environments, and you can actually have a new environment and configure, let's say, a new environment for testing. And you can add your environment level secrets here. So for example, if you need let's say a secret for publishing or pushing your artifacts on AWS, which is only required when you're releasing things, for example, production. So you can just add the environment secrets for production, not the global one, right? Or at the repository level or the organization level. I mean, you should not have secrets at org level unless you need it, but just be careful, because we all make mistake, right? We are human. Even ChatGPT makes mistake. Uh, Now, the next topic about around tokens is personal access tokens. We all love to create personal access tokens, right? So you also have one token which is created right now and never used, which is okay. But again, there are chances that you may lose your data just in case someone access your personal access token. So there are a few things which you can do. First, newly launched, it's still in beta. It's called new fine grained personal access token. I think you might have access as well. So you can actually, rather than using the classic tokens, which I can show you how it looks like, not my token for sure, but let's go. And you can go to settings, and this is where you create your personal access tokens. So you have this tokens, which is classic, and this is hashed, right? Yeah. So this is the classic token. You can see it never expires because who wants to create a new token every 90 days? But this is not recommended. So in case you are still using it, of course, I will delete it after this talk, because otherwise people will ask me, I'm giving a talk about best practices and I'm just doing the wrong thing. So of course, I will move to fine grained tokens, which are available now, and you can actually set an expiry. Okay. Okay. Hope no one saw my password. Yeah, so you can see now you can actually set the custom expiry. So let's say if you want a one-time token, which is only for limited time, you can do that now. So you can, let's say, set 7 days token, and then it gets expired. Or you can just say custom, like, of course, I want to like make sure that it expires on this day. So this is a good thing. Move all your tokens, personal access tokens, to fine-grained PAT or personal access tokens as soon as you can. So still in beta, in case you don't have access, probably you can enable it by going to feature preview, right? You all know, right, how to access feature preview. And one more thing about personal access tokens, whenever you're creating your personal access tokens, make sure like as an org admin, you also have SSO and 2FA enabled, right? So people can register it. So you don't have to worry about, yeah. So enable 2FA and SSO, most important thing to do. And register all your secrets, don't throw it around. So this is one thing people don't try to do, but make sure like all the secrets are registered so no one can hack it. One more thing, rotate your tokens. Again, as I said, best practices starts, but you have to make sure that they remain, right? You're still following the best practices. This is where it comes being proactive. You have to make sure you rotate your tokens, do planned audits, probably 90 days or 30 days, whatever you set as an org admin, and rotate all your tokens. Now you can use for tokens, I think you can use third-party services as well. And when it comes to third-party services, I haven't, of course, I haven't added that section here, but make sure it's like not everyone has access to your third-party tool, right, where you are storing your tokens. So probably have one single admin who sets a password, and probably he only knows the password to access all your tokens. So this is a good practice, but again, you rely on a single person. So maybe one or two, as I said, have fewer admins. Now, when it comes to knowing what level of permission you should have, this is where GitHub Security did a great job. They announced it last year during GitHub Universe. So there is a GitHub Security Action Permission Monitor action, which can tell you, you can actually set it on your job level, and it will tell you like what permission this job needs, whether it needs read access only, whether it needs, let's say, package write access only. So it can give you all the data. It can just like push it as part of your artifact, and then you can use that data to actually set the permission, or you can say fine-grained permission to your jobs. So in case you're not doing this, I think you should go ahead and add it, so you know like what level of permission you have and what is the minimum level of permission required for your GitHub action. They also have two actions basically. One is of course action permission, and there is another called advisor. So advisor action basically is, you don't have to add it as your job, as a step of your job, but it can give you yeah, it can give you an action where you can throw away your workflows and run it and see like what level of permission you need. Basically no one wants to add this to your job unless you really need it, right? Why should you do that? So this is where the advisor action comes really handy. As I said, like I have so many things, but I tried to cover only few because I'm going to give a demo. GitHub code spaces workflow, sorry, Copilot workspaces. And these are some references, thanks to my friend Joseph from GitHub security team who actually gave it to me. I'll share it probably yeah, somewhere on maybe Twitter or LinkedIn, so you can get all these references as well. There are a few more things which I want to talk about. For example, if you're doing GitHub Actions, you know, let's write the action first and then we see about it. So let's go. Hope okay. Okay, so let's see if live demo works or not. And here, so of course this is my own repository, and let's see if we can write a GitHub action using GitHub Copilot workspaces. I've been experimenting it a lot recently and giving some feedbacks to the GitHub team as well. Just in case you get access to this, feel free to send any feedback you have. So let's create. So is this visible? I'll just zoom in a lot. Okay, so let's create a GitHub action to build my package. Then I'll say, okay, this package build command is npm run build, and then I want to actually run this on, let's say, multiple version of Node.js, right? Run it on Node.js 18 and 20. I'll say, okay, use, what is this, Java error? What I was supposed to write, use. This is one thing which still lacks in GitHub Copilot workspaces. So in case you don't define that you need latest version of GitHub Actions, it can throw you the older version. So generally it's check out version 2, and same for Node.js. So just make sure that you define this for time being. Use latest version of GitHub Actions. Ready. So let's create it. Oh, no, it's working. So I thought like it's broken. So this is how it works, the GitHub code Copilot workspaces. It will start writing the specification for you once you define the task. So this is the important step, right? So defining the task correctly, and that's why our job is safe. So it will write all the specification, what is the current state of your workflow. Like it will check if you already have something called build, and it will propose some solution. So let's see what it is proposing. So it says, okay, GitHub action exists for build, and it's using npm run build version 18 and 20. So it says, okay, this is the proposed solution. It says, okay, configure to run on push to master, even though I haven't defined it, but it says, okay, it will configure it, and it will use Node.js. Let's see, 18 and 20. Then it will generate a plan. Great. So I'll say, okay, implement the selected. So now it is implementing. So basically it's very useful in case you want to do some POCs where you want to set up some initial task and then start revising your actions. So of course, don't copy paste the same thing which is shown here, right? So make sure that you go through what is actually written in your workflow and then accept it. So it says update the build command in the command to match the specified. So it also adds the documentation, which is a good thing. And it says even you GitHub Copilot workspaces can do like documentation PR for you. For example, if you want to change some small documentation, you don't have to do it manually. Just define a task. I've been doing it to save some time, right? Yeah. And of course, it takes a little bit of time, but I hope it writes this right action for us. So line number 255, I think. We have 15 minutes. So okay, I think 15 minutes is more than enough to finish this task. And one more important thing, it can actually understand your context. So in this case, I already have a build task and I have already defined it to run on JS 18 and 20. So it's just saying, okay, probably what didn't match is the build command. So it's just updating the build command. So this is what I wanted to show. It's not like a dumb AI, but it also understands your context. So if it's something which already exists, it will not write the same action again for you. So of course, just to make a documentation change, this is too much time, but still, like you don't have to worry about knowing the context of your code base, right? So you can just create the task and see if it exists. It does that automatically for you. Language in this, I mean, for example, you want to run for .NET or something else like that. Okay, yeah, you can. I think it supports most of the languages. So let's define something which doesn't exist. So let's say, as I said, like the build task already exists, so that's why it's just updating the command and nothing else. But let's create a new workflow, right? Actions to GitHub Actions to, sorry, no, yeah, almost. I mean, just to make a single line command change or comment change. Let's see what I can do. Create a GitHub Actions to deploy. I already have a deploy. This is something which is a really cool example. Close stale PRs. Okay. So let's say I want a task to delete my stale branches, right? And it should delete branches more than 100 days. And I would say run it every Friday, 12 p.m. CT. And let's see. So I just changed my specification. Let's see what it does. So it actually canceled the previous task now, which is nice, of course. And let's say, okay, this is save, and I have to, yeah, it will start generating the specification again. And let's see, it should actually say, okay, it's trying to see if there is any action which exists. It says no, there is no existing action. So what it needs to do now, it will propose the solution. So it will propose that yes, a GitHub action is now configured. So I'll say okay, I'll say update the plan and update it. Now it should create a workflow file as well. Yep. So it says a delete stale branch workflow is created. Now I can say implement selected. Now you'll see it, of course, generates the documentation, but it also generates or just writes the entire workflow for me. So really good in case you want to do some quick POC and you want to do some task which is probably critical, but should not be given too much time. So you can see it here. So it says there is a custom action. Even it can read the internet. Okay, what I did. Let me go back. Yeah, it actually knows where to go, so it's okay. But it can also read all the marketplace and see if there is a custom action which exists, and it just use something called dev dr prasad, and he has already written a custom action to automate this task, and it will just use that task. Again, be careful, as I said, don't copy paste it blindly because this action might be archived. This is something which is in feedback, so I just gave them a feedback that it is still using the actions which are archived. So probably they will revise it and drop a new model which can do smart thing, not using the actions which are already archived. And then you can say, okay, if everything looks good, go ahead and create a PR, and it writes the most important thing, which is description, right? I know I'm really bad at writing description, so at least it does better job than me. And then you can create a pull request. This is your pull request. Now your reporting manager is happy because it has a nice description as well, and you just did something rather than wasting, probably for me it's like 10-15 minutes job looking for some action and then using it. But you can just start this task and go have your coffee and come back, and it's already done for you. And this is right. I mean, this was my demo. So we saw both the use cases where it is context aware, that if something exists, don't write it. But if something doesn't exist, it will create it for you. And as I said, these are some references. I'll try to share it on LinkedIn or Twitter. And thanks again to my GitHub sponsors. They are the reason I'm here. So Commenter Rocks, one of my biggest GitHub sponsors. Sunil, Darshan, Umer, Anand, just in case you are watching. Thanks again for all the support you gave me. And thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, I think
Thank
we
you.
have time, so you can take questions if possible.
Thank you, Santosh. Do you have any questions from the hall? We can bring you microphone. Yep.
You talked a little bit about environment secrets and configuration. Can you elaborate a little bit how it can be used to protect organization level secrets? Because if you like have a organization level secret, right, and it's enabled for all repositories, even you want to enable them on newly created repositories, how do you protect these secrets?
Yeah, so this is
it cannot be read.
Yeah, so this is a good. I mean, GitHub. See, org level secrets are always critical, right? Because they have much more access. Basically, it's called GitHub underscore token, which is enabled by default for you now. Don't try to create, as I said, like try to create environment level secrets, which you can do as per environment. Don't try to have, let's say, if you want to access S3 bucket, right, and you want to make sure it's available on all the most of the projects, try to add them there so it's not leaked in case your main organization is compromised, so you can actually just access it in the job, or there's less chances of being compromised because you don't have it available globally. But good way is to actually use third-party providers where you can store secrets. For example, for example, Azure AD, right? So you can actually just save your secrets on Azure AD and then access it. Again, that's very this point of failure is less because of course that's something where on your cloud, so you are safe just in case you're trying to access those secrets. But it all comes down to your jobs, like what you're writing in your jobs, right? There are chances that you just write some wrong GitHub action and then you expose your tokens in your jobs. Basically, whenever you try to use secrets, you either use from environment variables, and don't try to use it in your scripts. For example, if you're running some scripts, don't try to access them directly, because once you run it in debug mode, they are actually printed as it is, so it's visible. So try to use environment env. I know there is a property called env. You can just set it to env first and then access it, so it masks automatically. You don't have to show it. So yeah. And next to you, a great GitHub expert is sitting, Michael. So if you have more question, you can always ask Michael. He'll be around here. So he recently wrote a book, just in case someone wants to get in touch with him. Yeah. Yep.
Anybody else have any questions in the hall? Just raise your hand and we bring your microphone. Or we can go to the Slido. So first question, can GitHub Action use different environment secrets, aka one job deployed to different ends?
One job. I think that's possible, right? That's why environments are. So can GitHub Actions different environment secrets? I think yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm still not sure what the question was, but basically, okay, he's trying to use same GitHub say in a same job environment level tokens for different environments. I don't think so that's possible, because that's why they are called environment level tokens. So you have to use in that specific environment, for example, staging or production, or you can define it in a single workflow and you have different environments defined. Basically, then you need to approve it multiple times. Basically, once it goes through, let's say we do that, for example, creating a release branch and then publishing a release. There are two tasks, but we try to do it in the same workflow, so you get like mail notification twice to approve those.
Just 1 second. We can't see slide. Yeah, now we can see. So this question, different question. What are the tokens stored?
Okay, where are the
Any
tokens?
file name?
I mean, generally you define your tokens here, so you can say environments and then you can create new environment here, or you can just actually go to actions and secrets and variables. So you can go to secrets and variables and create your environments, your secrets here. And if you want to save them on a third-party solution, I mean, that's up to you. You are using Azure AD, so use the Azure AD, or if you want to use different, for example, 1Password, you can use 1Password to do that. But in that case, they might have a GitHub app, which you may have to add into your GitHub organization to access those tokens.
Okay. GitHub has a user-based pricing model. Is there any difference between team members and outside collaborators in that regard?
Okay, so I don't work for GitHub, but I don't think so. I mean, to get started with, I mean, I think GitHub Enterprise is not free, but you can still use the teams on your free version as well. I think that's possible, but for Enterprise, I have no idea. I mean, you may need to ask. Sorry, is okay. So they need one license. So yeah.
If we have 30 repos in organization, how can I see overview of all GitHub actions, or at least scheduled ones with cron, without going into each repo?
Good question, because GitHub actually recently launched a feature. I mean, I don't have access to it because I'm not a org level admin, but they launched something in Insights, if I'm not wrong. So you can go to your Insights, and apart from depend bot, there should be another option available. It's still in public beta. I'm not sure if your organization may have access. It's something which was recently launched, so you can see all the actions. It will also show you like how much money you are paying for those actions and how much time it is taking to run those actions. Everything is available. The only thing is I don't have access to it, so you may need to check with your org admin. And if you don't have access, reach out to me. Probably I can ask someone from GitHub to give you access.
And we have a few minutes left, so the last question. GitHub has a user-based pricing.
We took care of it.
It's the same?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
fine.
sorry. Any recommendation how to manage and clean self-managed GitHub runners?
That's difficult, right? I mean, we also struggle with this. In case I mean, I'm going to ask Michael what he recommends, but use maintainers. Containers. Oh, okay. So as per Michael, use a containers. So you basically you can remove the containers once they are not needed. Uh, we we are also experimenting with something called NX, which has NX agents, which can do this automatically for you. In case you are running, I mean, NX is a cloud-based provider, so to run your workflows and to speed up your builds. If you are on Angular or any technology, I think they support most of the technology, but you can also try NX agents. They do it automatically for you.
Yeah, I think that's all for now, and we are run out of time. Thank you, Santosh, very much. Applause for Santosh.
Thank you so much.